different. So this is just a quick video to take you through your yarn ball band and the kind of information that you can find and use on your ball band. These are just a few that I've pulled from my rather extensive collection. I have trouble throwing them away. And you can see they all are quite different, the way they're laid out, the type of information or the extent of information on each does change. But there's certain features that appear on all ball bands. So I'm just going to quickly run through and show you what they are. So first of all, you've got your name, your yarn brand and your names. This is a West Yorkshire Spinners Colour Lab. It's fairly obvious, stands for itself. Then this is where you start to get the interesting stuff. So you've got your fibre content here. This is just wool. If we look at something like this is a Sheepy's one, which is, here we go. So this says linen, cotton and acrylic. This is all in different places on different ball bands, but if you use one brand a lot, you get used to where they are. So you've got your fibre, you've got your hook or needle size here. Now, most yarn brands have a hook size as well as a needle size, but some just have needle size. It's important to remember that this is only a guide. It really depends on what you're making. Here you have a tension. Again, like a lot of things with yarn, this is focused towards knitting. I believe that this tension is for knit stitch based on the recommended needle size. Now for crochet, not that helpful, and actually your tension changes depending on what stitch you're working, what hook size you're using. So honestly, I don't pay a lot of attention to that. Then here you have the length. So it's meters and yards. It's common for them to appear in both. Personally, I use the metric system, so I use meters, but I know a lot of people have a better sort of intuition about what yards are. You've got your ball weight, so that's a 100-gram ball. You have different standards in ball weights, really. So usually you get maybe 150 grams, but it does depend on the yarn type. So this is an alpaca yarn, and this, I don't know if you can see there, that's a 50-gram ball. And again, that's your meters. If you are working a pattern which says X balls of X yarn, and you don't have X yarn, so you want to replace it, so say you're replacing one DK for another, this DK, for example, has 225 meters. But if I let's find another one. So this is 50 grams, which isn't comparable exactly, but that's 125, so that will be 250 meters. We've got, what have we got here? This is a King Cole one. This has, so that is 252 yards, 230 meters. So the meterage by weight does differ between the different brands. So try and work with meters or yards rather than weight, because you don't want to lose at yarn chicken, basically. So talking of weight, you've got yarn weight here. So this is DK, which is double knit. Let's see if we can find something different. This is a Lion brand, Heartland, which I would call a worsted weight. Now here they call it medium, or a number 4. There's a US weighting system, which is just numbers. So this is, it's about a worsted Aran weight. But again, yarn weight, there's so much range in different categories. We've got one here, which is, that's a chunky. But again, it depends on your gauge. For me, gauge is king. What have we got here? We've got another, this is a We Are Knitters one. I'm not sure they have a weight class on this one. You can usually guess the rough weight class by the hook size recommended. So this one just has the needle size. This is kind of a chunky weight yarn from my experience. Okay, so that's the weight class. Then here you've got your washing instructions. So mostly when you're crocheting, you're making something to use, whether it's a hat, scarf, gloves, sweater, or maybe a pillowcase or a blanket. You're going to want to put it in the wash probably at some point. So it's really useful to have this information. This is probably one of the reasons I keep so many ball bands. I'm a bit of a hoarder. You can look this up and find all of this information out online as well, either at the yarn brand or an online yarn store. But I like to have this record. So that's, I think, the majority. And just this Lion Brand one, this suggests what you can use it for. The other good thing about this one is it has a little tape measure on the side. I really like that feature. One other thing to note is sometimes you'll get your weights in ounces. So again, this is a US brand, so they're going to put their weights in ounces because that's the common measurement that they use there. Something else that Lion Brand does is they've got a helpful key on this side. They have patterns on the inside. I don't think they do. Sorry, my cat's come to get involved as always. Okay, this one doesn't have a pattern on the back, but I know some of them do. We've got, here we go. This is a Cedar Gorgeous Ultra Chunky, which is a fun yarn that I've worked with before. I've got a blanket that I've made out of this. That's a 20mm hook. I think I used a 25. This has a snudge pattern that you can make from one hank, so that's got that on the inside, which is a really helpful thing to do. The other thing to note is the colours. So a lot of yarn brands give their colours numbers. So this is the shade number, and then the shade colour, this was white. There's a real mix. Some have numbers and colours, some have just colours, so it's a mix and match. This lot replies to the dye lot. So here we go, we've got another one here, which, there you go, which you've got the colour 8108 and then you've got your dye lot. Basically, even if you follow the exact same instructions to colour your yarn, there might be some small variations. So what brands do is they will give you a lot, so you can tell that your balls of yarn were dyed together, so the colour is going to be consistent. Because otherwise, if you use different lots, you run the risk that, say you make a sweater, you've got a sleeve that looks different to the rest of the sweater. So I think they are the main issues. I'm probably going to remember something I've forgotten to mention as soon as I press pause. But I've written a blog post which goes through all of this step by step. So if you're newer to crochet or knitting, or you've just never really paid much attention to the writing on your bands, then there's so much useful information, and it can really help you think about whether your yarn is suitable for a project that you're going to work. It might give you an idea about how loose or tight you want to work it, again, depending on your project. But it's definitely worth having a little look and just familiarising yourself with all the different bits of info that are there.